a little bit for my situation, and it worked pretty well for me. Working at my job, paying down debt. My modified rule was, what are the tasks that require my expertise to be done well, and what tasks have the highest impact on the success for my team and also my own monetary and financial success and growth. So my role at my job at the time was a QA engineer, and I just kind of through intuition, I figured out that those tasks were exploratory testing, building our automated test framework, becoming a thought leader on testing and software quality, and building relationships with developers and their managers to increase my influence at the company. So those are the things that I focused on. I focused on finding more bugs through exploratory testing. I focused on working on automation. I focused on speaking at conferences and events. And I focused on building relationships with the people around me at work. I tried to spend at least 70% of my time on just those four things, and I relegated all the lower impact things to only 30% of my time. Some of the lower impact things ended up just getting dropped, and nobody really noticed, and it didn't really matter. So that was a win. After a while like this, I was assigned a new intern to mentor at work, and she was working on my team, helping the developers that I was helping. And I was able to move more of that 30% of low impact work. I was able to move it over to her so that I could spend more time on the high impact work. So I handed the tasks over to her, like managing regression test cases, responding to questions from people, reproducing bugs. And then I set aside some of that time that I had gained back to mentor her on the higher level tasks, as she spent time every week shadowing me and watching me as I did them. And she grew to a point where she was able to contribute meaningfully on those high level tasks, and she was able to grow her career, and I was able to spend even more time on those high impact tasks myself and continue to grow my career. The core here is that I separated out my tasks into the high impact ones and the low impact ones, and I spent more of my time on the high impact tasks and less time on the low impact tasks. It still left me with a question though. How did I know which tasks were the high impact ones and which ones were the low impact ones? And when starting out a business, this is a really tricky question. How do you know which tasks are the ones that are high value and are going to bring in income the fastest? And how do you know which ones are the low value ones? I had developed a sense of it working at my job for a couple of years, but intuition doesn't always transfer well to other fields. And so I wanted something that was clear and repeatable to help me figure this out. And this is how I came up with this framework. First, I ask myself, what are the key objectives, or what are the key outcomes that I want to achieve? These are the big picture results that will drive my success. These are measurable and they are tied directly to what I want to achieve. So as a QA engineer, what I wanted to achieve was I wanted to get a raise and a promotion. I wanted to move from QA engineer to senior. I figured out these tasks intuitively just from working my job for a couple of years. But interestingly, 2 years later, after I'd been promoted, our organization did quite a bit of work to map out expectations for different promotion levels. In that process, I learned that a senior QA engineer was expected to be skilled at automation, very skilled at finding bugs, to be able to take up a influential and trusted leadership role within their team. And from those expectations, I was able to reverse engineer what the high impact tasks would be and see that my intuition was correct. I spend more time doing exploratory testing and finding bugs, more time writing automated tests that could have impact while I was working on other things, speak at conferences and meetups and become a leader in the QA space, and build trust with my team and build influence within the organization by strengthening relationships with developers and leaders. You have to have clarity about the outcome you want. You have to know where you want to get to before you can figure out if something is getting you closer to that thing. So the next thing that I think about is this outcome big enough? I learned this from Dr. Benjamin Hardy, who is not related to Darren Hardy, by the way. They just have the same last name. So Dr. Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan, in their book, 10x is easier than 2x. And the way I like to think about this is if you want to make an extra $50 today, how many ways could you do it? You could make cookies and you could go sell them at a soccer game. My kids have done that and been very successful, making $50 on several occasions. You could drive Uber for a couple of hours. You could go collect a bunch of cans and take them to the recycling center. You could go to the thrift store or some garage sales and find things to resell on eBay. You could pick up an extra shift at work. If you work an hourly job, there are a lot of ways you could go out and find ways to make $50 if you want. However, what if you want to make $1,000,000? You can't do that picking up extra shifts or driving Uber. You have to think bigger. You have to set bigger goals that impact more people. You could do it starting a company like Uber or learning a higher value skill that can get you paid multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars in income, and you could invest that money. You could become the very best in the world at something valuable. When your goals are big enough, your options to achieve them become much more limited, and what you need to do becomes a lot more clear. When you thin out the forest of possibilities, the path becomes clear because you don't get lost in the trees. So if you're having trouble figuring out what to focus on, first make sure you understand what it is that you want to achieve, get clarity around that, and then try dramatically increasing the size of your goals so that you only have a few options to go after.